Hey, it's Dennis. Welcome back. I received a question on one of my posts, one of my videos that I kind of wanted to address. I was going to just pound out an answer, a response, but it's really a good question, and I think it required a little bit more. Would have been a very lengthy response. So I decided to just make a video. It's actually from a friend of mine. His name's Giovanny. And Giovanny is kind of unique in that he has several brothers, I think 3 or 4, that are all in the electrical trade, and they're all just excellent. It's kind of unusual to see that caliber of talent and dedication all in one family, but a lot of love and respect for you guys, Giovanny. Anyway, his question was, hi Dennis, thanks for the info, always helpful. I got a question. I see that the info you provide is for foreman position. What's the difference with that position to being a superintendent? I mean, besides the money, of course. That's an excellent question, and so I'm going to kind of dive into this thing. In a pure sense, the structure of foreman, general foreman, superintendent, general superintendent, well, I should back up a little bit, and I'm going to be very careful in choosing my words here because I'm kind of going to have to straddle the fence here between, union shops and open shops, which is always generates a lot of comments. So listen, if I misspeak, go ahead and correct me. I don't mind being corrected. And this certainly isn't, something I'm an expert at, but I'm going to give you my impression. The structure for foreman was actually, I think, created under the IBEW agreement. And this is something that they, put together and negotiate with the contractor, and they all vote on it and agree to it, and eventually it gets accepted. And it's really the only, documented structure that I've seen. And to be honest, in my view, once this got distributed out or controlled from open shops, they kind of just, screwed the whole thing up because it was basically just, every company did whatever they wanted to do. Okay. But here's a copy of agreement that I found, an IBEW agreement. This is an excerpt from it that I found online. And it says, General Foreman, he shall be a journeyman wireman and a member of the union. He shall supervise the work of other foremen and direct all orders through them. When a job requires 30 or more workmen, a general foreman shall be appointed. A foreman, he shall be a journeyman wireman and a member of the union. And a foreman shall be appointed when he is directing 6 or more workmen. And a foreman shall be allowed to supervise the work of a maximum of 10 workmen, except that where there's a B foreman working under the A foreman shall be allowed to supervise up to 15 workmen. When an A foreman has more than 6 journeymen under his supervision, he shall not be allowed to work with the tools. Where, in the opinion of the union and the employer, the job will require 6 or more workmen, then the A foreman rate shall be paid from the start of the job. So then there's an example, and it has total employees, 1 a foreman working, 9 a foreman working plus 6 journeymen and 2 apprentices, 11 a foreman non-working plus 10 workmen, 16 a foreman non-working plus 8 foremen, and 14 workmen. Sequence of build-up to be repeated until 30 workmen on job, then a general foreman shall be appointed. An employer shall be allowed to send 1 a foreman per project site into the jurisdiction of other locals within the province. So my point is that in the IBEW, they do have a documented structure, and then you go into the open shops, and it's just kind of an interpretation of each company. And these are kind of the roles that I'm accustomed to seeing out on open projects. A lead man, which would probably be equal or similar to a B foreman in the IBEW. A foreman, general foreman, superintendent, and general superintendent. And this is going to be kind of fast and loose because this is just my opinion or my impression based on what I've seen out there. But a lead man, will typically supervise between 0 and 10 workers. And I say 0 because, in my opinion, normally they shouldn't be supervising anyone. If you have watched my videos, because I kind of go in depth into this lead man position, it's a good stepping stone for becoming a foreman. My interpretation of that position is kind of a spark plug for the crew. So the lead man leads by example, not by direction. In other words, he or she doesn't order other workers around. He or she sets a good example by, being punctual, organizing the tools and the material, getting up from breaks when it's time to go to work and get back after it. Just things like that. But I did put, up to 10 workers because, in my opinion, in the absence of the foreman, so let's just say that the foreman had to go to a meeting for an hour. So in the absence of the foreman for short durations, I believe that the lead man can be left in charge of the crew as long as everybody's organized and knows what they're supposed to be doing. You can direct the crew to that person in the foreman's absence, but it shouldn't be for long periods of time. Foreman, really, it depends on the project and, the work that's involved, but I could see a foreman supervising between 1 and 10 people. A maximum of 10 is my rule. And where the IBEW in that document I just read stopped the foreman from wearing tools at 6 workers, I prefer to give them 10% for each worker they're working for. So, if they had 1 worker, they'd be wearing their tools 90% of the time and not wearing them 10%. If they had 6 workers, they'd be wearing their tools 40% of the time and not wearing them 60%. So what I'm saying is they should be working with their tools a portion of that time, up to 10, and then they don't they don't use their tools at all. And that's just kind of how I manage things. And then typically, I see like a general foreman would oversee foreman, and a good number from my experience, I guess, is that a general foreman could oversee up to 8 regular foremen based on, the complexity of the project and things like that. Superintendents, from my experience, generally manage projects, not really employees, although they will direct general foremen. So between 1 and 6 projects, just depends on the situation. I've been worked for companies where they had one superintendent that oversaw, just bounced around to all of their projects, checked in with their foreman or general foreman, kind of answered questions and gave guidance, critiqued the schedule and put pressure on the project, whatever. And then general superintendents generally oversee superintendents. So in a pure sense, superintendents are actually, more administrators. They're not actual field workers, okay? So I don't think the IBEW contract even recognizes superintendents. I'm not sure. Maybe some do. I don't see it listed in this document here. I think they consider them more administrative in their duties, okay? So where the confusion comes in, I think, is that in the open shop sector, I've seen things slide over the years. When I was young and when I was a foreman, I worked under a foreman on a high-rise for an open shop. The guy was very, very highly skilled, but that was his title. He had several foremen under him, so I would say that in reality he was working as probably a general foreman. But my point is that in the past, foremen had a lot of responsibility, and I think that has kind of slid a little bit to the point where, lead man is really almost nothing. And the foreman really kind of takes care of the lead man duties, if you know what I mean. And the superintendent kind of slid into the foreman's position, okay? So I guess my short answer to you would be this. It really depends on the company that you're working for, whether it's an open shop or a union shop. If it's a union shop, there'll be good structure there. If it's an open shop, there'll be sloppy structure there. And, I think that nowadays companies are giving out titles as kind of an incentive instead of pay. Okay, they don't want to pay you more, so they'll give you a title instead, and it's an elevated title and, beyond what your, daily job duties typically are. So I hope that helps a little bit. Really, I think in your case, you could almost kind of interchange the two terms, foreman and superintendent, because I think the environment that you're in, you could fit under either title, depending on whether we're talking from a pure sense or, a 2022 sense. Okay. Kind of interchangeable, and it just depends on the company that you're working for, really. In my past, I've certainly seen foremen step up and assume a lot of responsibility. In my recent past, not so much. I see a lot of foremen who are really just lead men. And a lot of superintendents who are really just foremen, but just depends on your environment and the company you're working for. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Really good to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. Thanks a lot.